Right, the next section for you are the best bets and the talking points from the first 2 days of the Cheltenham Festival. With me to discuss are Dave Massey, who will give us the punting pointers. Daryl Jacob will give the view from the saddle. And Graham Cunningham, you're my Ben Stokes. You're my all-rounder who can do everything, basically.
Gets in a fight in Bristol.
Oh dear, we won't talk about that. Right, Dave, let's start with you. Let's start with the Sky Bet Supreme. And it seems the nation is almost divided about Facile Vega. The Mullins camp seem bullish. Lots of people willing to take him on. Which camp are you in?
He is something of a Marmite horse, isn't he? I think really for the first race of the festival. I'm in the camp at the moment that wants to take him on, but that could change if the weather changes. I think that's a key point, that we don't know what the weather is going to be yet and what the ground's going to be on the first day.
So if we assume there is some rain and it's good to soft?
I think if it's good to soft, I think that will help him. I think if the rain comes, it will be against him, and it'll be more for, I think, for Elite Tom, who will appreciate a bit more dig. I think if the rain does come, I'm with Elite Tom. I know he's a second season novice and that'll put a lot of people off, but Willie's done it before, Classical Dream, Vitor as well. Facile Vega, it worries me that they're going to be changing tactics. You know, in a couple of interviews now that I've seen with Willie, sort of, well, we know what went wrong last time. Chances are we're going to be changing tactics. I don't like the idea of changing tactics.
When we watched what happened at Christmas, if you talk about the good first, watch the performance at Christmas.
When he beat Elite Tom.
Impressively. Yes. Were you impressed that day?
That day.
If he repeats that, does he win the Supreme?
If he can repeat that, that's probably the best bit of form. No, that's not strictly true. I think Elite Tom's form, beating him and reversing that form, is probably the best bit of form in the race. But if he shows that form and improves upon it, which he can do, if he settles better, then that gives him every chance. But it just worries me that this change of tactics is being talked about is the big thing in my mind that worries me, and that they're somehow going to be holding him up midfield, and I can just see him pulling and reefing away and sort of wanting to go forward and wasting energy, and that's the big worry for me with Facile Vega.
Daryl, we've seen the good. Let's see the bad at the Dublin Racing Festival. One was Willie harsh on his jockey, and secondly, the way he stopped that day. How big a concern would that be?
Yeah, I generally think every jockey goes out there with a plan A, plan B, and they went out there, they thought they'd get an easy lead, high definition, took them on, and they ended up by road in that race, and we went a real strong gallop. But the interesting thing, on JJ's comments, when he done an interview the other day, he actually didn't feel that he was going very quick at all. And that's the cruising speed that high definition has. They went hard. He's obviously going to go in the Supreme, so there's going to be a good strong pace with him in the race anyway. He likes to go and he likes to get on with it. And if he did get to the front and he did get an easy lead, he could actually be a very, very difficult horse to peg back. It's really interesting actually, and I think, to be fair, if you were Paul, and like you say, if he knew what was going to do, he obviously would change tactics, because that's what you do. If something doesn't work, you go back and you'd obviously do something different. He's a very, very good horse. Jumpman's very good. I think he's a very, very, very good horse that I think could be really, really difficult to beat. And I think
so. You're a yay.
I think I am, but I think the tactics is going to be, and like you say, what Willie's come out and Paul, they are going to change tactics. I think that's a good idea myself, because they in Dublin, him and high definition went forward together, and it's ended up being, whether they went too fast and he stopped or whatever. But I still don't think Facile Vega was 100%, because even though from the back of 3 out, he stopped very, very quickly. He didn't even gallop the one pace to the line. He just literally stopped. So there was something obviously amiss with him that day. And I think if he's going, high definition is going to go forward. He's got the cruising speed that he can sit, and to be fair, he does relax. He's not as if he has to make the run. Patrick has sat him in his bumpers, and he was relaxed in his bumpers and stuff like that. So I don't think he's going to be too keen or anything like that. I think it'll take a good horse to beat him, if I'm being honest.
Where do you stand on it?
Sometimes the answer is, I'm not sure. If we see the Facile Vega from Christmas, I've no doubt that's the best single piece of form on view. Horses who beat Elite Tom. Can't look at that video and think that he's not inherently a better horse. And Ashore Diamond and Path de Rue, they've all franked the form to various levels. And the question is, can we give him a pass on an unnerving performance last time? But have a look at the way he's galloped these horses bow-legged. And the second horse is a good horse. The third horse is a smart horse. The fourth horse, beaten a mile, is a 140 plus rated horse who's fancy for the county hurdle. That's how good this horse is. His jumping is really good. Like Daryl, I wouldn't worry about him settling. Look at last year's bumper. He was amenable to restraint. They went a punishing gallop last time and he came back lame. High Definition is one of the horses I'm keen to get. I don't think he jumps anywhere near well enough to win a championship race. With Facile Vega, Ed, he would be 4 to 5 for this race, but for the Dublin Racing Festival defeat, and it was a heavy defeat. But he is, in terms of natural ability, the best horse in the race. We should have a quick word about Marine National, who is unbeaten. He looks a high cruiser with a turn of foot. His owner trainer, Barry Connell, says he's an absolute freak, and he might be. But there's a collateral line of form through Irish Point, which tells you that Marine National has it to do with a peak form Facile Vega. So it's pay your money, take your choice. He would be 4 to 5, but for February. But February happened. On balance, I think he will bounce back and he'll be hard to beat.
I asked William Mullins the other day for his bet of the week. The best Mullins horse of the week. Didn't hesitate. Facile Vega.
Really? I think that's significant.
So if I ask you for the winner, you can say who you'd like to ride most. You would go...
At 2 to 1, I think Facile Vega is just not a horse I would want to lay in any way.
Who would you back?
If I had a bet, I think it would probably be him. I think another point to mention here is 1 or 2 of his most serious dangers.
Yeah.
Likes of Lucia, likes of Hunter's Yarn perhaps, likes of Ampere Pass, more on him in a minute. They're not in this race, Ed. You see what I mean? I think that's significant.
Don't wind me up there. Best horses should be in the best races. Daryl, who would you like to ride, just very quickly?
Oh, I think Facile Vega, okay. He's a monster.
Dave?
Elete Tom, and if on the day they do a best of the English market, I'll be with the Main Lion.
Okay, that was the Sky Bet Supreme. We'll move on to the Sporting Life Arkle, Daryl Jacob. El Fabiolo. It just brings a smile to your face. Not that you're going to be riding him this time around. This was an awesome performance, despite the jockey saying afterwards he made a bit of a cock-up.
Yeah, that probably wasn't my finest hour there, but...
I think you're being very harsh on yourself.
In what way?
I just, to be fair, I got him into a lovely rhythm. And it sounds like everyone said we went, really hard. But, I thought, I know Dicer Dynamo was in front of me, but I actually felt like as if I controlled the race the way I wanted to control it from sitting in second. I felt very, very comfortable where I was. I know he went a good strong gallop for Leopardstown. But like, this horse I just got him into that lovely rhythm. He was very comfortable where he was, where I was sat. He could go the gallop, and the whole way down the back straight, he was just, he was really attacking his fences. And to be fair, at the what was this?
4 out.
4 out.
4 out's the one you criticised yourself.
Yeah, I gave him a squeeze, and he thought, that's way too long, and he just put down. And look, he was very, very clever to get over it, but. In reflection, it was just a fence that I kind of sat at 2 fences beforehand. I should have let him just go in and fiddle away and get over it. But I thought it was what I wanted to do then is if I got a good jump at that, I could just sit and fill him right up. But as it was, he was very good at, and I actually could still sit after the fence. I could still sit.
I think it's still a
2 out and then fill him up, and then like you say, once I jumped 2 out, I managed to fill him up, and I could still feel I had a lot of horse left underneath me.
His engine is obviously brilliant, but I've got 2 worries with him. One is the jumping, because I think he'd probably throw in another shocker somewhere. And secondly, that race, that was a monstrous performance. That was a brutally brilliant race. But surely that's not a great preparation for an Arkle a few weeks later.
And that's why William Mullins is the genius that he is, because he gets him back. Horses, even at that Dublin Racing Festival, there was still a lot of his horses that had hard races, and they will still come to Cheltenham, and they will still win, and that's why he's.
So you're not worried about that at all?
Not at all. No, I think this horse. This horse, you got to think about. He's so like he hasn't had that many runs in his life compared to a lot of horses. He's still like a big raw baby, and the more racing he's going to get, I think the better he's going to get, because he still at times does a few things wrong in his races that. With racing experience, he's just going to get better and better. And when he met John Bon
at Aintree
last year at Aintree, that was only his second run over hurdles, and like you say, he got a bad bump 3 out. He got sort of a bit of a bump then again at the last, or just after the last, and he's only gone back down to John Bon by what was it, a neck or whatever it was, for a very, very lightly inexperienced horse. That was a hell of a performance. When John Bon's been there, done that, he's a lot more street rise than El Fabio, and I just think this horse is is really coming to what hopefully can be a really, really exciting horse for Double Green.
Right, the question to you, chap. Dave, you go first. Sort of again, it's sort of split, isn't it? John Bon and El Fabiolo fans. Are you one of those camps or going elsewhere?
No, I think one of those two is going to win it. I'm not telling you anything. The market's not there. I'm not being clever. It's a shame Banbridge is probably going to go Turners. I think he might have been moderately interested in here. I know he's got ground to make up on the DRF with El Fabiolo, but I've been really taken with Banbridge this season. But by the by, I think as I say, we'll come to when we talk about the Turners. I think it's an interesting quandary because you made the point that El Fabiolo made that mistake, but as Daryl pointed out, and quite rightly, he got a leg and he found a leg quick and he was back on the bridle quick. So you look at the two and you go, okay, which one is more likely to make a mistake come Arkle Day? And it is probably El Fabiolo. But which one of the two, if they do make a mistake, is more likely to find a leg? We know El Fabiolo can find a leg. Do we know John Bon can find a leg? We don't know that yet. We know jumping is his key asset. We know he's quick. We know he's fast over his fences. I saw what I saw at Warwick in that 2-horse race last time. As I say, I wasn't near the paddock. I was at Warwick. I was working with somebody else. I was away from the paddock. But I saw him going down to post and I saw him coming back up. And I thought, on both occasions, I think you'll come on for a run here. I did think he was 95%. I didn't think he was absolutely razor sharp at all. So what happened at Warwick, I'm happy to sort of give him a pass for. If I was Aidan Coleman, I'd ride him like he was the best horse in the race, and I would put his key asset, his jumping, to good use down the back and make them work to get to him. Don't let others get to him.
Would you make the run with him?
I would. If it was me, that's his key asset. I'd go forward with him.
Graham Cunningham is shaking.
I'd go
his head.
forward.
Even with Dysart Dynamo in the race as well.
We've got Dysart Dynamo, yeah, take him on. Take him
Really?
on. I would take him
why are
on.
you shaking your
That's great for
Why are you shaking your head?
David,
Graham says-
you can have any price you want that John Bon will be
I know, he
Dysart
isn't going to.
Dynamo.
But I'm just saying what I
And
did.
it would be absolutely crazy so to do. These are proper Grade 1 horses. This is an explosive Sporting Life Arkle. And it's explosive because of the quality of the horse, but also because Dysart Dynamo is going to be absolutely winging. He is fire. I like this horse, Dysart Dynamo, to shake up the big two. First of all, this shakes up to be fewer than 8 runners, I think. I think it could be the smallest novice chase field of the week. Secondly, 2 miles 1, Leopardstown, easy ground, 4 minutes 8, the final time. The winner here, whoever it is, will be stopping the clock at around about 3:49, 3:50. I think Dysart Dynamo is slowly beginning to channel that fire really well. Don't think there's a better jumper in terms of the novice chasers going to Cheltenham than this fella. John Bon's really good, but he's starting to incline slightly right. Just slightly, not a major problem. I can't take 11 to 8 about El Fabiolo, given that, like you, I think he'll nudge at least 1. The pressure will be on from an early stage. And I think Dysart Dynamo can give them a right shake here. And to me, I'm looking at the prices and thinking, each way here, this could be six runners. He's going to be very hard to knock out the 3 for me. So excited about John Bon, but you couldn't go to Warwick and think he enhanced his chance. You just couldn't. No, even though it was a messy tactical race, even though he might not have been sharp. So I think it's a great race, but I don't think it's a 2-way go. I think it's a 3-way go. And if Danny Mullins is on Dysart Dynamo and gets him to relax that little bit more, look out.
I think the interesting thing with Dysart Dynamo is with Cheltenham, I actually think the track will suit him an awful lot better, because at Cheltenham you've got the undulations, but you're turning. Whereas at Leopardstown, it's a big galloping track, and you go down the back straight, and it's just wing. It's fence after fence after fence. Whereas with Dysart, you're kind of turning, so his mind is always going to be looking around him because you're always turning. So I don't think he's going to be as keen, and I think he's definitely, like you say, he's channeling his energy in the right way now, and I think. He could be a difficult horse too, Dysart. He's definitely not out of it, mind. He's definitely not out of it.
If you were riding El Fabiolo in that race, you'd have to be very mindful starting down the hill of how far he's ahead and how hard you have to work your mount to get to him. So it's a really seductive race, this, and it's not a 2-way go, I don't think.
Let's move on to the Champion Hurdle, GC, and look at the time form ratings for the race. And the question everyone asks is how far clear Constitution Hill is, and there's the answer.
Yeah.
Are you expecting him to do something pretty dramatic?
I am. I think he's, this is potential Hall of Fame stuff. For a horse to get as high on that list as he has so early in his career is It's pretty much without precedent. You could use Golden Signet, the ill-fated Golden Signet, as the previous one. What this horse did on day one last year, on the clock, visually, distance-wise, it's faultless, absolutely faultless, Ed. So I think he's ready to do something very, very special. All the vibes have been tremendously strong for the last couple of weeks, and I think he's got a really good horse against him in State Man, but I think he'll beat him, and I think he'll beat him by distance. I'm not telling you anything the market doesn't say, but I think he's the goods.
When you watch, Dave, State Man win at Christmas, you think to yourself, this is a horse that would win any normal champion hurdle?
Yeah, 7 out of 10 times it probably would. But, you know, Constitution Hill is around, and he's going to be around for a while. I agree entirely with what Graham said. I think Constitution Hill wins, and I think he wins well. It'll be interesting to see when they try and engage Constitution Hill on State Man, at what point of the race they try and engage him.
Big thing about him, Dave, is and this video will tell us exactly what the point I'm trying to make here. He finds a lot, and for that reason it's hard to know, Daryl, what he might find when he's up against an absolute ace. But as you can see here, it's generally hands and heels till the run in a slowly run race, and when Paul Townend goes for him, he just digs, and he digs hard.
I think this is a cracking race, but like, so the time of this was quite slow. So Paul set the fractions as he wanted, because obviously he knew Honeysuckle would want further. He knew he had the pace to beat her off, and the third horse has kind of run through him and come through him. But I'm just trying to look down through the champion hurdler, and I actually think it will be really. Like, where is Bar State Man goes forward? Like, where is your pace angle to this? And like, you always look.
Doesn't matter with Constitution Hill. You can do anything with him, can't you?
Yeah, but Nico's not going to want on a 1 to 3. He's not going to want to go out and make the run.
Why not?
No chance.
Keep
Because
it simple.
that's not the way he'll ride.
Not end up with not so
he won't ride.
the race. Might that not go forward and give him the lead
yeah,
for a while?
then you're right. Yeah, if
He's had a bet he gets up.
If he did, yeah.
Why are we complicating
He didn't really want to go
are we doing
down
here?
to last time.
No.
Why are we complicating this? It doesn't matter whether he leads or it's his second or third.
No, I agree with him. Why are we complicated? It's versatile ground-wise as well. It doesn't. You can't even say, well, if this ground turns up on the day, then it's a worry.
Ruby always says, when you're a horse like that,
ground-wise.
keep it simple. Keep it simple. And Nico's been there, done it before, so we'll see.
And State Man is a very, very solid, solid 4 to 6 chance to be best of the rest.
We need to wrap day one by, I want the 1, 2, 3 in the champion hurdle for you, and then we'll do the best of the rest. Who's going to go first with our champion hurdle 1, 2, 3? GC.
Well, it's Constitution Hill and State Man. I'm not sure about the rest. I think there'll be daylight back to them. What else do you need to know?
I like to move it and finish there, probably.
Really? You might do, yeah.
Charger. Second at last.
I don't think
running
he's
a
gonna
county,
run.
I think.
Oh, he's not going to run it? All right, fair enough.
Thanks for your tactical analysis on the champion land of your selection, Daryl. Dave?
Front 3 in the market for me, I'm afraid. Constitution Hill, State Man, and I think Boban will wait and try and pick them off late and pick up the pieces for third.
I think for me, day one is fabulous with all the stories, and we've not even mentioned Honeysuckle yet in the mares. Dave, what's the horse you're most excited about, most looking forward to on the first day of the festival?
Oh, good question. I've had a decent anti-post bet on Marie's Rock in the mares, so I'm hoping. I know.
The rain's going to the rain will help you. The rain will help you, I think. The
rain will help.
They'll definitely go mares.
And depending on how Nicky decides to shuffle the pack, I mean, there's talk now of the stairs and whatnot. I hope she turns up on day one. She'd be an exciting one for me.
And I think win, lose or draw, they'll roar Honeysuckle and Rachel in whatever happens. So you can still win with Marie's Rock. Daryl, if you could have one ride on day one, or you've got one ride on day one, what's the best?
I would love to be riding El Fabiolo. Sporting Life Arkle.
Well, I know you. You'll still be there. You'll still be there to cheer him in with Simon and Isaac.
Exactly.
GC, what's the horse you're most excited about on day one?
Well, I like Dyside Dynamo in the Arkle. I think Epatante is literally the forgotten horse on day one because Nicky forgot to enter her for the Meuse hurdle, but I think she's a big player. And there's a horse in the Boodles, we haven't really touched on it, and I'm not sure he's going to run yet, but he's a wild price, and he's called Mr. Freedom. Sheena West. He should have won at Donny last weekend, and he's that sort of hard scrapper who might run well at a big price in the Boodles.
Okay, there's so much to look forward to on day one. Those are our features for day one. Stay with us for the best bets and big stories for day two.
Are you Cheltenham ready? Download the Sporting Life app for the best coverage of the festival, including live race blogs, stable tours, interviews, video previews and expert tipping.